Welcome to the Bill Levinson Experience, a motivational podcast relating to the insurance brokerage industry and business in general. And now, here's Bill Levinson.
Welcome, everyone, to the Bill Levinson Experience podcast. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and most important, I hope you walk away with some great nuggets of information, as always, from this episode and from the series. So here we are, February 2021, and I'm very excited, as always, about this particular episode. And the reason why, it's actually a few reasons, but one of the reasons why is we actually did a full podcast episode with Emmanuel. It's been about a year and a half to 2 years ago now. And here's what was so interesting to me, and I'm going to just get off topic here for a second, but, you know, he's a younger guy, in fact, in his, mid to late 30s now. And what's interesting is when you listen to that, if you haven't listened to it yet, you must listen to it before this one, so pause it and go back. But what's interesting is when you hear him speak, and this was pre-COVID, and you listen to him talk about, you know, technology and selling over the phone using e-apps and e-policy delivery and various non-med programs, he was set up for this pandemic, okay, when Corona was just thought of as a beer, okay? So to now fast forward, you know, a year and a half to 2 years later, and to hear his story again, you know, during the pandemic, obviously, is crazy to me. It's almost like he kind of saw this coming, and obviously no one knew that this was coming, but the way that he set up his business pre-pandemic, we'll call it, is astonishing to me, because what happened, and no one obviously knew this, but what happened is here comes, you know, January, February, March of 2020, and this whole COVID-19 issue comes up. And not only was his business okay, but his numbers have gone up. And it's mainly because he was proactive and took these necessary steps even before COVID-19 was ever a thing, right? So he was already going in the right direction and always had his foot on the gas and always leveraged technology. So this is a perfect example. So anyway, getting back to my intro here. So we have several guest speakers on, several agencies on, and we've had in this podcast more than any other, we've had so many requests from agents saying either, hey, give me Emmanuel's number, I want to talk to him, or hey, how is he doing since COVID, or, you know, can you do another episode? I want to see how things changed or whatever. So anyway, Emmanuel was nice enough to take the time and join us today for a part 2. First time we ever did a part 2. So yes, I'm very excited about this, and I know everyone is going to love our little 45-minute back and forth pander here. So great stuff to come. What I want to do first off, Emmanuel, is introduce you. Thank you so much again for joining us and trying to help the Levinson agents. We appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be on. Very excited.
Yeah, me too. So let's just start off, Emmanuel. I know some people did not listen to the part 1. So just a little bit about, you know, how it was for you growing up, how you wound up in this crazy industry. Can we'll take us back to day one, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, you know, it wasn't a pandemic or anything like that, but, you know, flashing back to 2008, you know, after the crash in the market and, you know, everybody's downsizing and firing, nobody's hiring any employees. I just happened to be coming out of undergrad and grad school, getting my MBA, and they required you to do either a thesis or get an internship. And I really didn't want to do a paper. So I figured, you know, the internship route would make a lot more sense. And, you know, that would help me hopefully get a job in, you know, finance or marketing or something along those lines. And just happened to, you know, nobody was hiring. So my wife at that time said, hey, you know, go get your suit on, go get your briefcase, the resumes, you know, I had that like 19, probably, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s briefcase, you know, walking up and down downtown Fort Lauderdale, you know, off of Cypress Creek Road and I-95, going up, just randomly going into buildings and just stopping on floors, handing off my resume. Just so happened, stopped into, one of the big mutual companies and, said I was looking for an internship. And they, of course, insurance companies, oh, yeah, we're hiring because we don't pay any salary or benefits or anything. We'll take you. And we're not going to pay anything. And so I took the internship and, just over that 6-month internship while I was finishing up, MBA grad school, I saw all the guys around that had been doing it for, 10, 20, 30 years, saw them making, $700,000, $1 million, $2 million, and they didn't really seem like they were anything special. And even though I was having absolutely zero success, wasn't selling any policies, I just saw that glimmer of hope that, well, if they could do it, I can do it. And just kept plowing forward. And that was in 2009 is when I got licensed and, just stuck it out and, did a lot of joint work with some of those senior agents. But, I did it probably, I don't know if it was the hardest way, but it seemed like it was the best way for me at that time. I had no natural market. I'm a 20-something-year-old kid, no rich friends, no one to help me get in front of people. So I just banged my head against the wall, making cold calls every single day, to teachers about long-term care and calling attorneys and, just trying to do anything to get in front of people on a mass level. And this was very much before, social media and all that had kind of taken over and digital marketing. It was all just on the phone and, just kind of built the business slowly over time, but it's always been very transactional. We've never really done much planning. It's always just been, reach out to as many people as we possibly can about a specific product, life or disability insurance or both or long-term care, and satisfy that need, make them a client, and then we can always go back and, try and educate them on other services and benefits we offer. So,
that's awesome. That's a great story. I'm just curious, like here you are, young guy with your MBA, married, right? Young family. Yep. Did you get a lot of, was everybody okay with you being a life insurance agent? Or did they give you a little bit of a hard time or did they kind of see the big picture?
So everybody thought it was a complete scam. I think they thought this was a pyramid scheme. It doesn't work. I mean, I'm wasting my education. You're throwing your MBA down the drain. You're going to fail. Everybody, my parents, my wife, everybody was just like, don't do this. It's not working. And so I literally just went into deep compartmentalization, zone strategy, put the blinders on. And just because I kept seeing these guys that really had no special skills. I mean, most of them not even graduated college, making $500 $1 million a year. And it just was like, well, gosh, I've got the skills, I can do this. I've had some sales experience in the past as a kid growing up, always selling something, selling stuff on eBay, always, trying to flip something, to make a profit. And absolutely nobody was in support of the decision. Everybody's laughing their heads off. He works, from 7 a.m. till 10, 11 o'clock at night, doesn't get a paycheck, so everybody's just shaking their heads wondering, well, what does Emmanuel do? He doesn't make any money. And nobody supported the decision until you start making money, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, that was great. That was a great decision. And then everybody's supportive after the fact. So
all of a sudden it becomes the cool thing to do after you prove the concept, 10 years.
I think that's tough for a lot of agents is I think the mistake that, once again, what do I know as a 22, 23-year-old? I don't know the right way to go into an industry, but I think if I could go back, and if I was a brand new agent, I would make a strong effort to bring the spouse, the girlfriend, the parents, whoever it is, and have them meet and spend time with these experienced other agents and I'm not talking multi-level marketing type agents because they can't prove anything, as far as, they don't do personal production. So they're just having other people do the personal production. I'm talking other advisors, other agents that are selling insurance every single day, have your centers of influence, your family, your people meet those people so that they can, assure your close-knit group that, hey, this works, it's proven, it takes time. I mean, I didn't sell my first policy till I was 9 months in the business, finally placed the policy, and 2 weeks later I got a replacement notice. And I was like, doom and gloom, this was still nobody supporting the decision, so it's just a very hard business. I joke with one of my friends that did the type of business where you can go up to a brick wall and literally bash your head into it. You don't know. It could be 5 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. Eventually, gold coins start popping out of your mouth. It's just like you don't know when it's going to happen, when it's all going to click, but it's literally that bang your head against the wall type of thing, because it's not like selling a physical product or good where you set up your little kiosk in the mall and you're selling and your people are going to walk by and go, yeah, I'll buy one of those. It's a little bit more different. You're selling either fear or you're selling greed. Fear is, the insurance side of things and worried about, you get sick or hurt, disabled, die, and then there's the greed side where people want to make money. They want to actually grow their assets, in a safe way without, any risk associated with it. So, 2 different sides of a lot more emotion involved in the sale.
It's an intangible. Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's just, I always ask that question because I get the same answer from everyone. Everyone says, oh, my family thought I was like a used car salesperson and they had no idea the way this works. Everybody says the same exact thing. And it makes me think of, just real quick, my father, Kerry, who most of you know. I know Emmanuel's good friends with Kerry, but he started in the business, and it just made me think about this. They moved down to Miami. He walked into a MetLife career office. They were in a building. My mom she was pregnant with my sister, and my mom had to go to a gynecology appointment. So 2 doors down was the MetLife career office in Miami. So as my dad was waiting for my mom to come out of the doctor's visit, he goes next door, didn't have a job, walks into the MetLife office and says, hey, are you hiring? And it was the same thing Emmanuel just said. They go, we just happen to be hiring, perfect timing. Do me a favor, fill out this resume. And 2 days later, he had like an old card table that was like, hanging down on one side with a yellow pages and a phone that 3 guys shared the same desk. And they said, here, this is day 1. Call as many people as you can, and then we got to get you licensed. So he started as a cold caller, and of course the whole family gave him the same pressure. Here you are with a college degree. What are you doing in this business? Blah blah blah. And same exact story. He did it over and over. He proved the concept, opened his own agency, and the rest is history. So I don't know. I love to hear that stuff. I also just want to mention, Emmanuel, it's so true, like what you just said with banging your head against the wall, and eventually the coins come out. Obviously, you have to have what it takes, right? I mean, that's an important part of it. And I feel like I hear so many stories from agents that right before, let's say, the coins start popping out, they're already off and on to the next industry or career move. And it's a shame, it's a shame. And not everybody makes it, obviously. It's a small percentage that does. But Emmanuel definitely proved the concept, did what it takes, still is doing what it takes. And his story is amazing, especially he's considered a younger agent in this industry. You're what, 35 now, Emmanuel?
Yeah, 35, 30. I believe so.
30.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because I look at my business partner, Brian, and he and I are like polar opposites in the sense that, I'm more, sociable and exciting, and and he's a little bit more on the drier side, and he'll tell you, he definitely more like facts and just present the information. There's not a lot of like salesmanship involved, but even he has had tremendous success. So, going back to what you said, like, oh, you got to have what it takes. I think in this business, as long as you're putting the effort in and you're doing the right effort and things every single day, even someone who's not a natural salesman, never sold anything before. I never really was in official sales position. Neither was Brian, but we both had tremendous success because we were just consistent. I think there's some type of saying that talks about canyons or the Grand Canyon wasn't carved out by blunt force trauma. It was just consistent, slow moving water that carved that, crevice, that's in there. So I think if somebody's doing the right activities every single day, even they could have a good level of success, even if they're not working in the right markets or whatever. Just do the right things. Always, have enough lead flow, people to talk to. And I mean, a perfect example, in the beginning when I was, just cold calling, I started just cold calling attorneys and just saying, hey, it's Emmanuel. I'm calling regarding just to see if you have already gotten a chance to buy a life or a disability policy yet. Have you bought one yet? And, talk to 40, the first day I made calls, talked to 40 people, and it was, not a great script. It was nothing fancy. It was just, have you had a chance to get a life or a disability policy yet? And 2 people in the first day said, oh yeah, I got a Post-it note on my computer that says, buy life insurance. I'll buy a policy. Oh yeah, if you can get me one, I'll buy one, because there were some health issues there. So it just goes to show, even with the worst script and no strategy, talk to enough people and somebody is looking for what you have. So I'd leave you with that.
That's a great. You're exactly right. It's just unfortunate that most people, start looking at other career options when things get tough, and they don't keep their foot on the gas. But you're exactly right. It's persistency and consistency in this business, and you guys have proven this over and over. So I just want everyone to know, Brian and Emmanuel, okay, Doctors Benefits, consistently year after year, our top 10 agencies. It's unbelievable. So it just goes to show you. I mean, he is, what he's saying is spot on, and that's a big point I want everyone to walk away with. It's not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist or specialize in one area or one field, or as long as you stay consistent over and over and over. Because Emmanuel, I'm sure during those attorney calls that you made, right? How many times did you get hung up on, or the attorney says, "Well, what are you wasting my time for?" Right, exactly. But you know what? You got right back up again and did it again, right?
Yeah, and I think that's also important for the newer agents, to have a support and camaraderie system. I would not probably been able to make those calls by myself. So I was just sitting in a room getting abused on the other line, for hours every single day. I, probably mentally would have destroyed me, but I, had a friend, Matt, we sat in the office together. I made a call. He made a call. It was just that camaraderie of and we kind of came up with our own little formula and I think that's the problem. Everybody's focusing on how much money, do I want to make, and they don't have a plan on how to get there. And what people need to be focused on is the activities, because we calculated all the numbers that every time either he or I made a dial, whether an attorney or a teacher picked up the phone, didn't matter if anyone even answered, didn't matter if it was a disconnected number. If we just every time we dialed, we would end up making about $90, because we knew that if we made 100 dials, we would reach X amount of people, and of those people, so many would buy. And if we took, the equation, okay, we made, $9,000, we made 100 dials, you can back engineer, okay, how much effort do you have to put in every day to make the amount of money you want? So, but yeah, I think working in a team, even if it's just another agent that you're growing up in the business together, just to have that camaraderie, make the calls together. I mean, for years, till we went 100% virtual, I ran almost every single meeting with another agent, a friend, and we'd split the cases, and it was just a lot more fun to do things together. And that's what I do with Brian. We compete with each other for each other's benefit. We always want to impress each other. We want to close the next case because we split the business 50-50. So it's good to have somebody to work with as opposed to being like a lone wolf. You have no one to high five with, nobody to share the bad times with, nothing, Not that Brian and I are high fiving, he's in Hawaii, so so.
I love that. That is a great way to look at it. If you're making 100 calls, it doesn't matter. If you get 2 sales out of the 100, you just average out whatever the commission is and say, $90 a call. That is genius.
We'd make calls from 9 to 12 in the morning, and we didn't even care what the outcome was. We just know we put the effort in. We did what we were supposed to do. Like we did our job. Now we can go to lunch and know that we were going to make money. I mean, it was inevitable that somebody was going to close the case, out of those calls, and that's what we do today. I mean, we don't look at. I don't track the numbers that much. All I know is like consistent effort, consistent marketing. I mean, Brian and I were looking at the numbers the other day, and we did roughly, I think, somewhere between 600,000 and 800,000 of term premium, and that blew my mind because I don't look at the numbers. I just sell. I just close policies and just keep closing. Brian tracks more the number side, and so when he told me that, I was like, just completely blown away because all those $100, $200, $300, $500,000 a month, all of it added up to be this monumental number. And that was just on the term side, not including the whole life and the IUL and debility and all the other, stuff that was. So
that's over the last year or so, you said?
Yeah, just in 2020, we did just between basically the two of us, not including the other agents and stuff that work with us jointly. A little over, I think it's like 600 and something thousand of term, just term.
See, and that proves exactly what I said earlier. This is during a pandemic, right?
Yeah,
during
virtual.
Yep. I love it. During a pandemic. So when some agent said, you know what, I can't do my face-to-face seminars anymore, I can't do my Starbucks meetings, I'm going to kind of wait until this cools off a little bit, right? These guys are out there not only selling, but their numbers are going up during the pandemic. And how many clients did you see out of that, $800,000 of, let's say, term paid premium? How many of those people did you see during 2020? Face-to-face?
100%. Zero. Yeah, zero.
There you go.
I'm here in Tennessee, Brian's in Hawaii, and we're not seeing anybody. And nobody wants to see. I think that's the thing. I think people need to realize that, like, there's no need to be sitting at the kitchen table and in somebody's office and all that. It's nobody wants to really do, especially with the pandemic. Before nobody wanted to do it, and now they especially don't want to do it. So I think
even more
said earlier about just being proactive. Like, I think a lot of agents, they just keep doing what they're doing, and they don't try and change the strategy to adjust to kind of what's going on. I mean, when the pandemic and everything hit, we quickly made adjustments to our marketing and what we were doing to focus on non-med products, no exam disability, no exam life insurance, and utilizing all the companies and resources you guys have, to do that. And people loved it. I mean, the clients ate it up because they're like, oh, I don't have to do a medical exam. Great. Sign me up. I want to lock this in as soon as possible. So it was, fascinating to see that change.
Yeah, no, that's all. So what do you guys, basically you're just selling over the phone? Do you use like Zoom or GoToWebinar or whatever the client prefers, basically?
Yeah, basically, I would say if I had to put a number on it, probably 99% of client interaction is 100% over the phone. So we're not having the clients get in front of Zooms or anything. I think, a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. Like, they don't want somebody to see them in their house and see, wherever they're sitting in their, home office or bedroom or whatever it is. I think the phone is, more than sufficient. And occasionally we do a Zoom if we're doing maybe something a little bit more advanced, if it's a premium finance case or if we're presenting, a cash value life insurance policy that we need to show a visual representation, then we'll do it. But the bulk of everything is just over the phone, keeping it.
let me ask you a question. So, and I think this is good for everyone. So obviously let's say 99%, with just a phone call, right? So when you're especially newer prospects, clients that really don't know who you are or much about you, do you tell them like, oh, check out our website, drbenefits.com? Like, do you say like, oh, look at my social media pages just to form some credibility, or like they trust you right off the bat? Like, how do you overcome that?
Yeah,
Or does it even come up?
It does come up occasionally. A lot of times we've already done marketing in the sense that they've already been on the website. We've driven them to the website, for them to see who we are, what we do. They've gone on, they've run some quotes. Occasionally they have not, but I think so I noticed kind of a shift. So before the pandemic, we didn't have much competition as far as like people saying they're going to shop around or anything like that. But we would tell people, hey, look, we specialize in, if it's life insurance, we're talking, specialize in life insurance. We work with 50 plus different companies. We shop around with everybody. The great news is you're not going to have to talk to 10 or 15 different agents. You're only going to have to talk to me because I represent all these companies. So we're going to find you the best option. And so that kind of eliminated the need for them to shop around. They don't need to. We're brokers. We can work with anyone that's available. And then as the pandemic hit, it went to the extreme where not only were they not shopping around, but there was like very little think about it. Let's do this. Let's get the application submitted. Let's do the exam if an exam was required. And now that kind of the pandemic has a little bit out of the spotlight and not many people are talking about it, I think clients they're feeling the financial impact of last year. And so I think people are a little bit more cost conscious. And so I think agents need to be aware about that. Like, hey, like it's still an unstable time. Make sure you are telling people that you work with whatever it is, 20, 30, 40, 50 different companies on the life and the disability side. And you're going to shop around and save them as much money as you possibly can. I think that's why I like doing it over the phone versus we never email quotes. We don't email to anyone because can't gauge their reaction. If you send somebody a quote for $2 million of 30-year term and $500 a month, and you just send it to them via email or text, you can't hear like them go, oh, well, that's not too bad. Or the opposite could go, that's kind of high. And then if you're on the phone with them, you can pivot and say, oh, let's look at a 20-year term, or let's look at 1.5 or 1 million. So I think having that verbal conversation is important so you can pivot accordingly.
That's another great tip. I love it. You're right, because you send an email with premium or a quote, and let's say their cousin, is also in the business. All they're going to do is take the quote, send it to them, and say, hey, beat it. And they're going to go shop, and then you probably wind up losing the case. Not because the premium's better. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Sure. Occasionally we do get some people that go, no, I want, like they won't get on the phone or whatever. And we just tell them, hey, unfortunately, that's just not how this process works. We're only going to take up 5 to 10 minutes of your time on the phone, help narrow down the options. And if you want to email you those options after the call, happy to do so. But we don't just blindly send quotes out to people. It's a waste of your time and our time. And so we have taken a very strong stance on that a couple of years ago. Nobody gets quotes and brochures and all this stuff until we speak to them on the phone, because the reality is if they can't get on a call for 5 to 10 minutes to go through some options, they're not going to give you the time to do the application either. So it's a waste of everyone's time. And occasionally people go, okay, then I'm not interested. Oh, perfect. We close the deal out and move on. So we've taken a strong stance on that because the stats have showed you send the quote, very unlikely you're going to get the business, because it's just now they don't need you anymore. They got the quote. There's no shopping. Reason for them to talk to them again. So
I love it. And I hope you wrote that down, by the way. That's huge. I absolutely love that, because they're going to take your quote and shop it all over the place. Chances of them coming back to you are slim to none. And why waste your time and their time? That's it. You're done and you move on. I love it. All right. Sure. So Emmanuel, let's back up a minute. So we spoke a little bit about, like, you saw some changes, during COVID, consumer behavior, right? A little different. Just
Yep.
the 100-foot overview on like what you're seeing right now, like let's say, early 21, 2020 versus like prior years. Like, are you seeing, life insurance awareness is skyrocketing? People are shopping a little more, a little less. Like, what's just your overall consensus?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are definitely a lot more conscious for just insurance in general, because they've seen friends, family members, children. And I just was speaking with a client in underwriting the other day, and he apologized for not completing his phone interview because they had 2 infant deaths in the family that was COVID, caused. And so that was just, kind of crazy to hear that kind of news. So yeah, I think people are they're more open to just life insurance in general, living benefits. I mean, we've had more living benefit conversations than we ever really had before. That's not something we really focused on much, but it's now something that people are thinking about. And, but yeah, I think overall awareness for insurance is higher than before. And I think just using the no exam programs that are available, we're doing as much no exam business as we possibly can. Whereas prior to COVID, we had a strong stance that, hey, we schedule the exam every single time, unless the client was really against doing an exam. We were always scheduling the exam. And now it's the opposite. We can get a case issued without an exam. Well, that's speeding the whole process up. The clients love it. And it's just less invasive. So we're always looking for opportunities where we can place, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million of coverage without an exam. And the same thing on the disability insurance, handful of carriers that will give up to $10,000 a month of tax-free benefit without an exam. So
Unreal.
That's unique. So
Unreal. And what's crazy? Think about even 3-4 years ago, to talk about a $10,000 monthly disability benefit, or to talk about, $2-3 million of life insurance, non-med, right, issued in a week or two. That was a pipe dream. If you told an insurance company that, they'd say you were doing something completely illegal, that you're in another world. So look how fast things have changed, and why not use that angle, that message, right, to create the marketing sizzle, right? You talk about the cold calls, right? Look at some of the sizzle here that you should be using when consumers, and Emmanuel, I think you'll agree with me, but when they think of life insurance, they think of like 10, 15, 20 years ago, the way life insurance was sold, where the nurse comes to the house and medical records are ordered, and it takes 2-3 months to get a policy. Not the way it is anymore. It's your job to explain it, right?
Yeah. I was speaking with a client yesterday, and his exact words were, he had saw like one of our marketing pieces and just said, like, is this really like no exam, or is this just kind of like a tickle, like just to get me to call you guys? And I was like, no, it's really no exam. As long as you meet the requirements, we can get you up to $1 million, with no invasive exam. All they do is a phone interview. And he's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's submit the application. And that was the only reason he inquired, because he had a policy that was going to expire, and he was going to convert it to a permanent policy, even though it was going to be outside of his budget and all that. And just so happens we got the no exam information in front of him, and all of a sudden he goes, well, if I don't have to do an exam, I'd love to do that. So I don't have to pay this. His level term was expiring, and it was going from, I don't know, $50-something a month to $5,000 a month, goes to the moon. So he's pretty excited about that.
Yeah, it's getting the message out there. I love it. I love it. This is great, and this is real life stuff, because Emmanuel's out in the trenches, just like you are. Okay, so when you hear, a lot of times you listen to me and like some life insurance training coach, you say, well, this sounds great, but they're not selling out of their third bedroom in the middle of Wisconsin, whatever. Emmanuel is just like you guys and girls that are listening. So there's no excuse. You're hearing it from the horse's mouth, as they say. So that's why I thought this was so important. I also want to mention, too, Emmanuel and Brian, okay, yes, their agency is Doctors Benefit. And if you're a good fit, okay, and they don't work with just anybody, just a few select agents, but if you think that you would like to possibly open the door, speak to Emmanuel, if you think it might be a good opportunity for both of you, let me know, and I can, of course, make the introduction. Okay, so that we're open to that as well.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, we spend 99.9% of our time selling. That's what we do every single day, and we spend that small 0.1%, talking to potential agents that would be a good fit, that already kind of in a similar model to what we do, but they're interested in working with higher net worth clients. They want to work with doctors and CPAs and more white collar folks. And that's what we focus on. So yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, no, of course, absolutely. And I would never even mention it if I didn't think the world of you and Brian. You know that. Just so real quick, I think this is also important for everyone. It's so funny because you always hear, like growing up in the business, being on both sides, they all say, well, the first thing you have to do is you got to buy your own policy, right? Number one, obviously, you got to be protected. You got to believe in what you're selling. Number two, something happens to you, right? You got to protect the children, the wife, the spouse, whatever the situation is. And it's important to kind of go through the steps, right, to learn the process and be inside of it, compared to the outside. But, it's like the old, the shoemaker with no shoes. Most agents, believe it or not, don't have, half the policies they sell. But this is kind of a funny, well, it's not funny, interesting story, I'll call it. But Emmanuel, do you want to share what happened to you personally, if you don't mind? Or we can leave this part out. Yeah, I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, I mean, firm believer, obviously, in life and disability insurance. I've always had, plenty of life insurance. I always maxed out my disability coverage, and it was just interesting. I had put, requesting to increase my disability coverage probably a month or two ago, but between being just so busy with business and all that stuff, just was kind of put it on the back burner, like you said, like the shoemaker with no shoes. But yeah, I was trying to increase my disability coverage, and then 2 weeks ago, I was ice skating with my daughter, and I'm actually a pretty good ice skater, believe it or not, coming from South Florida. Grew up right across the street from the Panthers practice arena, but I incorporated my 2-year-old into the mix 2 weeks ago, and of course, we fell. Instinctively, I must have, tried not to fall on top of her, went to the side and dislocated my shoulder. And so for the past 2 weeks, I've been working with one hand, my non-dominant left hand, and it really just opened my eyes like, oh my gosh, like, well, what if I would have broke my neck, or broke my arm as opposed to just a dislocation? And, just like, it's been a strong thing. I'm like, gosh, like, I need to talk to my agent and get myself, why didn't he sell me an accident policy? So I looked myself in the mirror, and I guess I didn't think about it, so just kind of really opened up the value of these different types of policies, and also it made me so thankful that I'm not driving all over the place and meeting with clients and having to put dress shirts on, and I just just really solidified being virtual and still being able to work, even if it's at half capacity. I mean, typing with your one left hand is not easy. So I'm grateful to, do a lot more drop tickets, less e-applications right now. But yeah, I mean, agents should definitely have the coverage, for life, disability. I mean, we looked at a plan a couple of years ago for like an all-inclusive family accident injury type of policy, and I don't know, just didn't buy it, but definitely would have come in handy. It would have been nice to have a couple bucks for the injury, and who knows, it could be a month or two before I can fully use my arm properly again. So yeah, just was glad I had the existing coverage, but would have been nice to have some other stuff too. So looking into it.
Yep, and it's just funny how, everybody talks about it and thinks about it, but until something happens like that, it hits you over the head and you're like, oh my gosh, you know what? Now you're even a bigger believer in what you're selling because you had firsthand experience. So,
I talking to all my doctors. Every time I have somebody on the phone for the past 2 weeks, I've been saying like, hey, like I know we want to talk about the disability. I'm literally talking to you. I've got my arm in a sling, can't really move it. Imagine if you were me and, now you can't do shots, you can't take notes, you can't do surgery. I mean, it's so easy. I mean, and I know it was ice skating, but people slip and fall and, all the time, just randomly slip on a toy on the floor or whatever. And, could easily ruin somebody's career. And so, they're very powerful, and the clients have really I never really had a personal story about premature death or disability in the family or injuries. And, now I've got this one and, I'm going to use it for sure.
Yeah, no, of course. That's exactly what I wanted you to share with the group. That's awesome. And that's real life stuff. So I think it's so important. All right, just a few things left, and then we'll get this wrapped up. What I wanted to ask you, and I think a lot of agents, even more so now, are experiencing this right now, working from home. Obviously, you've been doing this for a long time, even pre-COVID. How do you stay motivated? Like, any tips? Like, do you say, okay, it's 9 a.m. It's time to start hitting the phones, working my prospects, and helping my agents? Like, is there? Do you work by the clock, or like how do you stay in it all day long? Monday to Friday. Like, is there any tips, tricks you can share?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so that's like the equivalent question of like asking God the meaning of life. That's the equivalent question for me, because honestly, if I was by myself and I didn't have Brian and the other agents that we work with, and that accountability of wanting to like one up them and impress them, like I don't know if I would be in the business, even though I've had, ridiculous success. I just don't know if I would continue to do this without that support system. So as far as from a person, competition. I think having that competition between Brian and I and the other agents and just wanting to, like I said, impress them, like a perfect example is, Brian and I have a mutual client and, he was doing a pretty big annuity, and like, I didn't even tell Brian about it. I just wanted to surprise him with it. I wanted him to see that wire transfer of, $30,000 into his bank account, and for him to go, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then the next day he's like, all right, I closed 3 more cases, so I think especially in this kind of COVID environment where people are working from home, there's more isolation, you got to team up with somebody. I don't care who it is, just another agent or two, collectively get together, and you guys can just work your own leads individually, or you can do what Brian and I do, where we split the cost of leads, we split the revenue for leads. So anything we generate together, we split. Doesn't matter if he closes it or I close it. We go on the applications for 50%. Now, the caveat to that is you got to find an agent that's going to work as hard as you, because you don't want to be in a position where you're closing $10,000 a month of premium a month, and the other agent's closing $5,000. You got to be like equal skill set. But I think that is huge to drive each other. Otherwise, I like I said, I don't know if I would even be in the business anymore if it wasn't for that kind of camaraderie that we have. So
I love it. And you know what? It's accountability. At the end of the day, if you're screwing off for 3 days straight, and Brian calls and says, Emmanuel, what's going on? I sold $23,000 of premium so far. What have you done? I've been taking it easy.
I feel bad. Like if he's closing a bunch of business and I'm like kind of striking out or whatever, I'm like, gosh, I gotta get going here, and make a couple extra calls, do that stuff. And, and I think it's something I kind of learned from the career agent system of where I originally started, is there's a lot of accountability in that type of platform where there's managers, there's assistant managers, there's meetings every week where they go, how many calls did you make? The downside is you sacrifice a lot on the compensation in a lot of career agent systems, where you're getting maybe 50% commission. So I think you can kind of re-engineer and create that same platform yourself with accountability between other agents for sure. So, but yeah, I mean, that'd be my best recommendation. Accountability with other agents, working together, having ridiculous lead flow. Like, other agents, like Grant Cardone does it all the time. Big fan of Grant Cardone and kind of his motivational and way he kind of presents things. But he says the solution is not to reduce expenses. So if times are tough, COVID's happening, economy's down, the solution is not to reduce expenses, it's to make more money. More activity, more sales. And so I think a lot of agents have scaled back in their lead spend and marketing programs, where we did the opposite. I mean, we ramped up our marketing double. As soon as COVID hit, we said, it's going to be tough times, but tough times don't last. Tough people do. So it's like, okay, let's create more leads, more opportunities. And that really, really paid off. So I think agents need to focus on a lead system, whether that's doing mail out programs, social media blasts, all the stuff that you guys have, all these lead vendors and all that stuff. That's phenomenal. The word of caution I would give, because I've experienced firsthand as an agent, is there's so many people on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, and all these self-proclaimed gurus saying that, oh, we've got this Facebook ad program, it's $5,000 and here's all the things we can do. 99, I've not found one that's not a scam, but I'd say most of those things are a scam. They're just selling you a pipe dream, a course, and none of it ever actually pans out, because you're competing against the big insurance companies that are spending millions of dollars a month on ad spend versus your $200 or $500 a month ad spend. So it's better to take your money, go with what's proven. The phone is a proven free marketing program. Pick up the phone and just pick a niche. I don't care what it is. Teachers, attorneys, plumbers, pick a niche, call about a product, make them a client and sell. And then if you have capital, you can buy into, mail drops and final expense leads and mortgage protection. All that stuff works. It works. I don't even need to do those things, but periodically over the years, I've said, you know what, I'm going to try this mortgage protection program. I bought $1,000 worth of leads, closed $9,000 worth of premium. So even it all works if you do it, if you just work the system. So
yeah, that's you. And you know what? You mentioned a lot of those, like the Facebook ads, those companies that, for $5,000, we'll get you 100 leads a week. And what they don't tell you is also 95% of those groups also sell insurance. So of course they're handpicking the best leads for themselves. You're almost competing against yourself. So it just, I hear so many horror stories with that. You know what else, Emmanuel? I'm seeing a lot of these new MLM groups, that are coming out. Oh, you sign up with us, you make $100,000 a week in 2 months, and they encourage the team building and the top 100 list. And I have heard horror stories on that side as well, more now than ever.
In seeking the meaning of life, I've inquired with some of these groups, just to see, okay, I'm a solo producer in essence. I mean, I work with Brian, but I'm a producer. What is it like to work with some of these, big groups? They got the celebrities and boxers,
yes,
and, presidents, and they have all these people that they're putting in the front line there. And, and I've talked to those people, and they don't want to sell insurance. They don't want lead programs. They literally said, no, we don't work lead programs. We just hire in the masses, train them in the classes, and throw them out on their, what comes next, So it's like, it's just like, it's not an actual selling system where you are going to make money selling. You're just going to keep recruiting. And I just don't see, people do make money in that platform, but it's 1 out of 1 million. Literally, if you look at the stats, the average person working at some of these groups, they make $5,000 a year, $8,000 a year in an MLM structure. So I think, being independent, having access to the 50 different companies, like with you guys, owning your book of business, if I, for some reason, go, I don't like Bill, I'm leaving. My book of business is my book of business, it's my client, So I think that's important.
Yeah, that's important. It's a lot of these companies, they do these, it's not even a sale that the agent makes, it's a referral. So they're the agent of record. You get a referral fee. Meanwhile, you're right, 2-3 years later, we don't like each other anymore, and the agent goes to walk away. Guess what? That entire book of business was in their name. So, I mean, you wouldn't, it's just crazy. There's a huge gray area in the space. So always just keep your eyes open. I think that's the biggest point. Ask the right questions. Here's a perfect example. Brian and Emmanuel, I mean, they've been in the business now over 13, 14 years, right? They can go on whichever side, the career side, the independent brokerage side. If they wanted to work, 20 levels under an MLM group, obviously they can do that too, right? And look at the path that they have chosen, right? And look at where they are today. So I think that just shows. I love it. I love the story. That's why we invited you guys to be back again for part 2, the only time we've ever done this. I remember the part 1 podcast episode, the views literally, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, skyrocketed. And agents requested, they said, you got to get him back on. So I don't know. I love the story. I hope you all enjoyed this. And I said it a few times. Obviously, the most important walkaway is these nuggets that you can use to change your practice and help motivate you, especially in these tough times, right? If you are open to working with Emmanuel, you think it might be a good fit, let me know. And obviously, I got to ask a few questions, and then if it's a good fit, I'll make the introduction, and you guys can work it out. We have no problem with that.
Sure.
Emmanuel, do you want to leave any last statements or comments with the group?
I mean, I think the best advice I can give to everyone out there, whether they're new in the business or even experienced agents, I mean, because we know a lot of experienced agents they're 20 years in the business and they're failing. They have not reached the level of success that they could have gotten to or can get to because they're still operating with 20-year-old, strategies. But, the advice I can give to everyone is keep it simple. Pick a product or two that you want to, offer, life, disability, or life and annuities or whatever it is. Just pick something. Market on a mass level, whether that's a lead program or emailing your database or whatever. You got to do something on a mass level. You can't rely on centers of influence and referrals. You can't rely on family members and CPAs and attorneys and all these people to refer you business because that's a finite supply of people. And now you're, at their disposal. If they send you business, great. If they don't, you don't have any business. So you got to keep it simple. Don't complicate things, especially over the phone. That's the biggest error I see with agents is, these guys that have 20 years in the business, they think they're going to talk about all the features and the benefits and planning. And next thing you know, they've confused the prospect and they go, I got to think about this. I got to talk about this with my wife or whatever, versus we got Brian's brother in the business 4 months in, and he's closing policies over the phone with no sales experience, knows nothing about insurance other than what Brian and I have told him, and he's closing business because he's keeping it simple. How much coverage do you want? How long do you want it for? Have you done an exam with a doctor in the last 18 months or whatever the no exam requirements are? Okay, the good news is you don't have to make any decisions today. We first got to get you approved. The only question we need to ask ourselves is, do you want some amount of coverage? If the answer is yes, let's send the application. Let's see exactly what you get approved for, which it takes a couple weeks. And then once you're approved, we can decide on how you want the policy to, be structured from there. So yeah, simplicity. Don't get into the weeds. You don't have to talk about every benefit and feature that's there. I mean, it's pretty simple. Life insurance, disability, make them a client, and then you can always go back and talk about the term conversion, the IUL, the annuity, whatever it is, but, just make them a client. Because I've got clients every single day emailing me from years ago saying, hey, I want to convert the rest of my term insurance. Hey, I want to put another $200,000 into an annuity. So they'll reach back to you because you're their guy. and just staying in front of them consistently with marketing. You got to have a CRM system that drips on your people, whether it's once a month or once every month, just so you put your name in front of them. And, but yeah, and that would be the best advice. Joint work, accountability with another agent or two, and work together, push each other, to greatness. So.
Love it. Love it. And you need a very supportive wife like Laurel. You forgot to mention Emmanuel. That was number 9.
Supportive, yeah. She'll hate this podcast, but yeah, I mean, it was, we joke about it. She hates when I bring it up, but it's always like, because needless to say, I became successful enough that she could quit her job as a CPA and come work for me, and now she just, works here at the house, helping with obviously LVs and just helping out. So
love it. I love it. That's part of the team. All right. This was awesome. Better than expected. As always, I love the story. Emmanuel, thank you so much. Laurel, Brian,
sure.
Love the support. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I love the fact that some of these newer agents, even the seasoned agents, can walk away with some good info here. Persistency, consistency, the KISS method Emmanuel mentioned, just keeping it basic, keeping it simple. Don't complicate things. I love the partnering up strategy, holding each other accountable. That's huge. And you don't have to be face-to-face. Like Emmanuel just said, one's in Tennessee, one's in Hawaii, and Laurel's, 2 rooms over. So, you don't have to be sitting face to face in a meeting room anymore. So anyway, love that concept and strategy. This was great. I hope everyone stays healthy. Most important, I hope we're almost out of this thing. But in the meantime, you got to keep your foot on the gas, keep helping these families, helping yourself. And we'll stay on the right side here. We'll see you next month. Thank you again, everyone. Take care and good selling.
Thank you for joining us for the Bill Levinson Experience. Please feel free to share this podcast with anyone you think would be interested. You may also visit levinsonandassociates.com and all of Bill Levinson's social media pages for more information.